Hey everyone, welcome to my finished final cards impressions video for the Boneshaper class for Frosthaven. If you're into spooky scary skeletons, then this might just be the class for you. I am currently running a giveaway for Gloomhaven Digital if you're watching this just when the video comes out until the 19th of July. You can get the information down below, but thank you so much to Aesther Digital and to Flaming Fowl, the publishers of the game, for supporting the channel, and it really is nice to see them kind of getting involved with content creators and the community at large. So big thanks to them, and the competition closes on the 19th of July, and I've got 5 copies of the game to give away. So check out the links down below, and who knows, maybe you could win and play some Gloomhaven Digital, which is awesome. As always, of course, if you'd like to support the channel, please do consider tossing the video a like. It helps me out so much here growing on YouTube, and subscribe to the channel. I've got lots more Gloomhaven, Frosthaven, and Jaws of the Lion videos planned in the future that I would like to do. So keep up to date by clicking the subscribe button and maybe click on that notification button, because I will have impressions videos for all of these classes as well. And so I've still done some of the Frosthaven ones are already done. Check out the channel down below, but I've got more to come as well, including the Bling Blade and the Drifter. And of course, if you want to catch up with me live, you can always catch me at twitch.tv/mandatoryquest, where I stream every Monday, Wednesday, Sunday, usually Gloomhaven Digital. So come hang out. You can always ask me any questions about Frosthaven, Gloomhaven, or anything you might have there. Okay then. This one's going to be a good one. Let's get into the Boneshaper. So we have the Boneshaper class in Frosthaven. The working name for this character was the Necromancer, and that was what the character was called before the change to Boneshaper. On one of my previous videos, we talked about this change. I think it was a good change. In the past, there's been a few characters in Gloomhaven that their names have been a bit too on the nose, if you like, a little bit too self-explanatory for what they do, and it doesn't really kind of represent what the different characters in Gloomhaven and Frosthaven can do. I think Gloomhaven has created a very good and interesting and diverse universe, so it's good to see that we're not falling back on original kind of fantasy tropes. However, if you are interested in playing a Necromancer style character, then this is certainly going to be the one for you. So you can see here that we can summon shambling skeletons, which are disposable whenever shambling skeletons are killed. Place their card in our discard pile. Additionally, you may choose to move their cards from your active area to your discard pile at any time, removing the corresponding summons from the map. In either case, you may later recover the cards and use them again. So this is another one of the kind of newer mechanics, and we've seen it a little bit with the Banner Spear with their replayable summon. But the Boneshaper also has replayable summons and has more than your regular person, and also has some abilities that allows them to play those summons kind of out of their discard pile rather than out of their hand, which is quite thematic, you know, for a Necromancer style character. So really cool. Be careful with your hit points though, as many of your abilities will force you to suffer damage. So although we can kind of keep summoning these guys, there is this self damage that we're going to unfortunately have, which is kind of like a way of balancing this character, meaning that, you know, at some point you're going to have to stop, you're going to have to heal. So having a little bit of healing in your back pocket is going to be needed, and you're certainly going to have to think about that a lot more. And yeah, it just stops you from going kind of crazy with it, I guess. Many of your heal abilities specifically target your allies and not yourself. This is a really important thing. So heal 5, target 1 ally at range 3. This is important because obviously with this drawback with our cards, we're obviously going to be looking for ways to heal ourselves. So this is an important rule here, that you are not an ally of yourself, if that makes sense. So this is essentially meaning that you can't use some of these cards to heal the damage that you're going to be taking off yourself. So I think this is an important clarification. Good to see it on the card nice and early to get this in your mind. As you can see, the character has 12 cards, which is a really big hand size, kind of to be expected really with a character that's got a lot of summons, because you're going to have a lot of cards out into your active area at many times, which means that it kind of reduces your playing hand somewhat. So it's good to see that 12 cards, this means the character is going to be very flexible with their hand size, and it's going to mean that you can have those summons out without exhausting, perhaps like just with all of your summons already out on the board. So that's a really nice thing. I think this gives this character a lot of flexibility and a lot to play with. Your health though is pretty low, so you can see here at level 1 we've only got 6 health, which is the lowest starting health you can really get on a character. That also means that if you consider that we take 2 damage every time we summon, we can only really summon 2 things before we need to heal again. So that's a good thing to bear in mind. Also, remember when we long rest, we recover 2 health, so that's quite important. That figure 2 is going to be something, and multiples of 2 is going to be something that we need to keep our eye on. Importantly, when we get to level 2, we get to 7 life, which means we could actually go all the way down to 1 life if we wanted to and summon 3 things. That's a little bit risky, but it's certainly something that could be possible. On the kind of chart that we have complexity level of 4 out of 5. That's pretty high, and the reason why this is so high is because you really need to work with these summons and really kind of have an understanding of how monster focus works and the power of summons and how these summons can be used in a really good way, right? So it's not like it's a particularly difficult character necessarily. It's just that this character is got a lot of rules kind of implications. As you can see here, the rules, we've got summons, summon monster behavior, and commanding figures. There's going to be a lot of rules sort of implications. So although I don't necessarily feel like the mechanics of the Boneshaper are complex within themselves, you can see that just having to manage this group of summons in an efficient way to be an effective character does make the class a little bit more complex. You know, you've got these other things that you need to worry about, not just yourself and playing great cards every single turn. So you've got your elemental affinities as well, which is earth and dark. And you can see from what we do, we are low on the melee, low on the mobility, but we're pretty high on the defense here and on the control spectrum. The reason why defense is so high is because your summons can just eat up damage here. This isn't to say that this particular character is very good at tanks or anything like that. This character does not have loads of shielding and stuff herself, I imagine, but it's more to do with the fact that this character can throw summons out there, and those summons can eat some attacks and really do a defensive role for your team if you want. The Boneshaper is looking quite good, so let's take a look at the cards. So we have our first Summon Shambling Skeleton card in Life and Death. This is a 3 health skeleton with 2 move and 2 attack, but we have to do 2 damage to ourselves to summon this. It is 1 XP and it goes out, and this is a non-burn summon. So here we go. Here's an example of skeletons that we're going to be using a lot with this character. Now with 3 health is okay, actually. I think this is surprisingly decent for what this is. I sort of envisioned that this would probably be a bit lower because of the fact that you can replay them so much. This does mean that there's a potential that this skeleton could take 2 hits. It's pretty low, but there's potential that this could take 2 hits if the enemy was to draw a -2, for example. And especially at level 1, if you're playing on normal difficulty, you're not increasing the difficulty level of the game, which I think most people will probably start the game off playing normal difficulty. I don't see why you would try and go hard straight away. So this will be a very useful summon, I think. The 2 movement is obviously not great. The 2 attack, though, is okay. It's a very bog standard thing, but this summon is, for a replayable summon in terms of value, I think it's very good. Pretty useful on their own, in fact, without just you needing to do too much. This is still going to be a summon that's going to contribute a little bit. The 2 movement, as I said, is a little bit slow, and really 3 is the magic number with movement, as we said before. But you're going to be able to move these around yourself a little bit too, so that's not maybe going to be so much of an issue. 91 initiative is okay. I mean, it's late, as all summons are. You either want to go super early or you want to go super late. If you wanted to go super early because you wanted to chuck a summon out to definitely tank an attack, or if you want to go late and then maybe go early the next turn to guarantee that the summon maybe gets a turn. So that's also something that's quite good with summons. You can go late in a round, play the summon out, and you're like the last character to go, and then you go early on the next round and your summon gets to immediately act and hopefully get a turn off and maybe do some damage and get an attack off, which is useful. On the next 3 sources of damage to you prevent the damage. This is interesting. So this is actually like a tanking card. So contrary to what I said before, this is actually a pretty interesting little tanking effect here, but it is a burn, so that's yeah, a little bit more limited. But preventing entire amounts of damage can be quite good. And I imagine towards the end of a scenario, if you really just need to survive for whatever reason, perhaps the scenario is, go to 10 rounds or something like that, then this type of effect could be playable. I think obviously the skeleton is great. This is a burn is okay, not great. It's not something that you're really excited about. So I don't perceive you wanting to play this really unless the situation really calls for it, or it's towards the end of a scenario, especially considering that you only get 1 XP when it all drops off. So this effect in total only gets you 1 XP, but obviously every time that you play this you get 1 XP. So in terms of gaining XP as a character, this is the better route. But it's an okay effect. It's not bad, and it's something that can be useful in certain situations and could maybe be the difference between you winning or losing a scenario sometimes. So I'm okay with it. The next card is Returned Servant. So another skeleton, exactly the same stats as before. So that's nice and easy. We can just say, yep, we like that. We don't have to talk about it. And on the bottom here, we have move 4, 81 initiative. So slightly early initiative, but to be honest, it's not much different really. It's still, the idea here is going late. Now, this is a much more playable bottom. Move 4 is something that you're never, ever sad to see in Gloomhaven. And considering this character, supposedly going by the charts, has pretty poor movement, I would think that this is one of the actual summons that we probably want to be keeping for the bottom rather than the top. That's my kind of initial feeling here. Whereas this one, I think you definitely want to be playing the top all the time because the bottom is not necessarily, it's situationally good, but it's not, you know, everything that you want to play. You don't want to play this at the beginning of a scenario, right, or at all. Whereas this, I believe that the move 4 is going to be really important for this character. It's going to be a really important effect for you to have. So generally speaking, you're probably going to be wanting to use this as a move 4 rather than the skeleton. But I like the fact that we've got the skeleton here too. 81 initiative is obviously just okay. It's maybe will allow you to go really, really late, but with a move 4 like this, you might not want to go late, so you might end up wanting to pair something with this. But this is yeah, so another solid card, and the move 4 is probably going to end up being what this character really, really wants in a lot of instances. Next, we have Damned Horse. We have the third skeleton. So again, we like the skeleton on the top. 71 initiative though, so this has been declining by 10 every time. So the first one was 91, so we had 91, 81, 71. The difference between the three is not huge. I think at this point in time, you just want to go late. If this is your intention, then you want to be doing this as late as possible. So you would guess that I would probably say that the 91 initiative is actually preferable over the 71 at this point in time, if your idea is to go late and summon, just to try and guarantee that late spot. The bottom here is Curse, target 2, range 2. Okay, so this is a really nice effect. Now we have known now for a while that these kind of effects, especially cursing and stunning and disarm, are going to be a bit more premium and a bit more hard to come by. So this is a very nice amount of curse early on, definitely. Being able to do this from level 1, that's going to help your team out quite a bit. The range 2 is a bit prohibitive, I would say, because it means that you're personally going to have to be close. And the fact that it's on the bottom also means that you're going to find it hard to move into the right location to curse, right? You're going to have to be in the right place at the right time. So setting this up is going to be slightly harder to get the target to, unless of course we end up getting some moves on the top. But you know, if we do, they're usually pretty rare. So this is a very strong effect. Really, really like this. But being able to do this target 2 at range 2, I'm not convinced so far that this character is going to be in the mix, you know, actually with different characters. So are they going to be close to enemies, or are they going to be towards the back? My gut feeling is they're going to be towards the back with their slow amount of movement and their kind of more supporty type ranged abilities that they have, like heals and things like that. So, and the fact that we're just commanding our summons a lot of the time. So we'll see. But this is obviously a very powerful effect to get cursed this early. And this is probably, in terms of power level of cursing, this is probably up there, I would imagine, for Frosthaven. This is going to be a pretty strong version of the curse effect that I would imagine that we're going to see. So yeah, Damned Horde. So all three of these cards will probably be playable for different reasons. I think definitely this one is playable for the summon, and this is going to be your #1 summon card, I would imagine. This one's probably going to be movement most of the time, maybe the summon occasionally when you feel the need to, and this one could be either way. I think this is obviously very strong, and I think if you can get away with doing this, you're going to definitely want to. I like the way that you could also pair an attack on the top or something. That could be nice. So yeah, these three cards I think are probably going to be auto includes just because they're summons, and sometimes you're just going to want to use a summon because your other cards are going to also play off that. So yeah, some 3 solid starts there, and these summons I think are going to be incredibly useful, and they've actually got pretty good stats for replayable summons for sure. Next, we have Transfer of Essence. So this is strengthen target 1 ally at range 3. Then we can consume Dark to add an additional target, so 2 allies instead. And we've got Poison range 3, consume Earth to add +1 target to that, 1 XP. So this character has got a kind of a poison and cursing kind of theme going through them. Makes sense with the theme of the character, right? In terms of like this strengthen ability here, it's obviously a little bit awkward to strengthen your summons because they've already been, unless we have some way of commanding the summon on the bottom, I guess. But it's a little bit awkward to do this to your summons. You probably want to do this to an actual, mercenary ally instead, I would think. Consuming the dark for an additional target is Okay, probably not great. Depends on really your party composition and how many people you're playing with. This obviously, if you're playing with 4 mercenaries and you have some summons out, you could probably find some really good use of the additional target. I think the bottom of this is a bit better though, but obviously you can do all of this. So being able to strengthen one ally, great. I don't think this is maybe worth an action all in itself, but I think poisoning 2 things here could be quite strong. So consuming the earth to get an additional target, and that's range 3 to get the XP as well. That's nice little upside to trying to do this side of it. I think this is really where you want to be at. If you can do all of this, you're obviously very happy, and in a large party, that's great for you. But I think that the real kind of like power level of this is this action here. Being able to poison 2 things, I think is quite nice. And yeah, obviously this is a nice little upside, something that you can do. You can't target yourself though, of course, because of the ally thing. So worth bearing in mind that we're going to have to keep an eye on this. So we can't do this to ourselves, but we can do it to our summons. So this is going to work at least within our own synergy as well, a little bit. So yeah, this is a strong, I believe this is a pretty strong top action and a nice way to use elements too. 62 initiative is pretty bad. It's in that middle area there where it's not early enough and it's not late enough. So it kind of just ends up in a bit of no man's land, really. So you're going to want to probably pair this with something to either go really late or go early, depending on what it is that you want to do. Got heal 5, target 1 ally at range 3, but then do 2 damage to yourself and create dark. Interesting. Okay. So this is, yeah, literally Transfer of Essence, a very apt name for this card. So realistically, this is only a heal of 3 if you think about it as your total health. You can think about it that way, and I know a lot of people will probably see that because this is a pretty significant downside, especially considering that we're also self-damaging ourselves by our summons. We start with only 6 health. That means that, you know, in theory, if we play 2 summons, we can't physically play the bottom of this card. Also, this generates an element that the top of the card wants, which is sometimes a little bit awkward, right? Because unless you have a stamina potion, if they're going to exist in the game, then you would need a way to be able to play this back, or short rest to be able to play this. So it's a little bit awkward. Hopefully we've got some better use of this. I think this is okay. It's probably a little bit on the weak side. If you've got a main tank and it's somebody who can actually hold the focus of enemies throughout the entire sort of scenario, then that's great. This character definitely has some synergy with the Banner Spear and potentially with the Drifter, I would say. If the Drifter's going for more of a tanky build, this kind of strategy seems pretty good. But this is a significant downside. So realistically, are we going to be able to support this? I'm not so sure. Also, our skeletons only have 3 health, so obviously this is completely wasted on one of our own summons. So realistically, this is only going to be played when you're trying to heal up one of your tankier friends. But 5 health is a decent sized heal. It's a very good sized heal for a level 1, but there is a significant downside here. So potentially that's going to hamper your playstyle, right? It's going to hamper how many summons you're going to have. So that's worth sort of bearing in mind. I think this is an okay card. I think the top is pretty decent, and the bottom, maybe between rooms, this could be okay. You know, your team is going to be long resting maybe, so you're going to be getting the health back, so it's not so much of a downside. This could be a nice way of topping your tank, your frontline type characters up, or someone who's got themselves in a bit of mischief. Okay, so Decaying Will is attack 1, range 5, and poison. We add +1 attack if the target is adjacent to at least one of your summons and create earth. So this is interesting. So it's a really long ranged attack. Range 5, that, as I said before, I feel like this character is going to be potentially at the back a little bit more compared to some of the other ones. A little bit more of a support, or at least that's the way that I'm envisioning playing this character a bit more. This additional +1 is nice. I mean, attacking for 2, it's... I guess the thing is that it's maybe a little bit on the weaker side compared to what we've seen before. If you compare this to something like Toxic Bolt, I think that's a very easy comparison here. You know, if you think about the Tinkerer's card, Toxic Bolt, this has much longer range though, so that's nice, but it is slightly nerfed on the damage side of things, or at least we're going to have to be pumping some stuff into this. Also, this doesn't add additional +1s for everyone. It's just you get +1 if it's at least one of your summons, right? So this isn't +1 per summon. This is just +1 if there is a summon. So this tops out at an attack 2. An attack 2, range 5 with poison. Creating an element though sometimes is always... that can be very worth doing an action sometimes. So I think this is kind of okay. This is like baseline, probably playable, I think, in terms of power level. If you can do an attack 2, range 5, and poison, that is worth it in my opinion. However, if it's an attack 1, range 5 and poison, especially when enemies start to get shield or the levels start to increase, then this is really going to be just poison something at target 5 and create earth. Which, is that going to be great? I don't know. I don't think so. However, this does create the earth, which then comes back to this. So we do have some good ways of getting poison out very quickly with this character. So there are ways that we can kind of get the poison going on multiple figures potentially quite quickly. We can attack something and poison it. Then on the following turn, we can play this, strengthen an ally, and then poison 2 other things. So this character does have the ability to get poisons kind of going, if you like, which is, yeah, which is always a good thing. So I think Decaying Will is like fine. I think that is, you know, base power level. The range 5 is very useful though, being able to maybe get an archer at the back of a room or not have to be in trouble yourself. So yeah, I think it's okay. 46 initiative is pretty bad, right in the middle there again. It's in no man's land for initiative, so probably going to want to pair this with something or do something, either go late or early or whatever. This probably isn't going to be your leading initiative, put it that way. All of your summons attacks are unaffected by retaliate. Interesting. And this is a burn. This is a permanent effect. Wow. Okay. So this really negates one of the biggest downsides of summons, and that is that they wander up and they hit an enemy with retaliate and they die immediately. So there are some really big issues with summons in Gloomhaven. A lot of people will know that feeling, especially if you've played some of the unlockable classes where certain scenarios just almost feel unwinnable to you if the enemy was to draw one of their retaliate actions early on the wrong turn, right? There's some heavy RNG in play with that. And this really kind of sort of puts an end to that. It really stops it, which is pretty cool. I like the fact as well that potentially you don't need to play this immediately, but this is something that you can consider playing in certain scenarios. Like if you're going into a scenario and you can see that there's heavy retaliate enemies in the scenario, you can go, okay, great. Let's bring this card. Let's bring Decaying Will in, right? This is a very strong sideboard kind of ability. You might not want it every scenario because perhaps they don't have retaliate, but the top kind of carries the card a little bit too, especially at early levels. I think this is really, really interesting effect, and a lot of people are going to be using this a lot of scenarios, I imagine. It's going to depend a lot on how much retaliate there really is in the game, but we can imagine that there's going to be a fair amount. This can't be understated how powerful this is, because it really solves the main weakness of a summoning character, and that is really retaliate enemies. So that is I think a big step forward in solving that issue. So yeah, really good. And I like the way that the player is given the option here. Like, you don't necessarily have to play it. You can keep it in your sideboard, perhaps when we level up, and bring it in when we want to. Because like I said, the top of Decaying Will for me is this card's going to fall off pretty quick as the levels start going up and the enemy's shield starts increasing. But this is always going to be a relevant card that's going to be in the back of your mind, like, this scenario, I'm going to bring Decaying Will and I'm going to use it. Plus, because all of the summons are top actions, you can maybe play this and a summon on turn 1. That feels pretty nice to me, I think. Next, we have Dark Tidings, which is grant 3 of our summons, attack +0 and curse. Interesting. Okay, that's pretty decent. We can consume Dark to actually, to add poison as well, 1 XP. Oh, but it's a burn. Okay, I was going to say this seems really powerful, but the burn here, I think that's, yeah, that's fair. I think if you could grant 2 summons this, would you be pretty happy about it? I think if you could do an attack, I'm considering that our summons at level 1, let's say we're just playing skeletons, that's only an attack 2. That isn't super great. That's nothing kind of crazy, but the curse kind of tips it over the edge. Being able to attack some things, get some more curses going, that's pretty good. I think you want, this is really one where you really want the max value out of this, right? And that's going to be tricky, but you're going to have ways and means to do it. Like that heal card, for example, we have some element generation here. This character does so far have 2, I would say, really good element generation type abilities. This one's a bit rougher to try and do, but I think, you know, this, for example, is something very easy to do. This needs the dark to really kind of pop off and be great, but this is, I think this is sneaky good. 43 initiative, no man's land again. We haven't seen a good initiative, or at least a good early initiative on this character yet. And the bottom is move 4, so another move 4. If you have 2 move 4s, we're pretty happy. Makes me wonder, maybe we do end up playing this for the skeleton rather than the move. If we've got access to another move for, maybe we can throw the skeleton out without worrying too much. It's unclear to me right now how many skeletons we really want out. Obviously, this card is trying to say get all of your skeletons out. That's what it's really trying to do. And I think that could be possible, but is that really going to happen? It's going to be quite difficult for you, especially on 43 initiative, to be able to reliably do this, right? To reliably be able to have 3 summons, and they have to already be in a position to attack, okay? Because there's no movement on this either. So they have to be next to an enemy, they have to be ready to go, and that's going to be a bit tricky. So is the top of Dark Tidings ever going to really be 3 summons, or is it more likely to be like 2? If you can go early, then perhaps you can get this 3. That might be a bit easier. I do like it though. I think as a one-off burn effect, I think it's, the value is probably there. If you could get 3 curses and 3 poisons on enemies, that's really good value. That's very good and definitely worthy of a burn. So, and the move 4 here on the bottom is actually, makes this card worth maybe keeping in your hand for that sort of instance, right? It's nice to have sometimes. You're going to need the move 4 most of the scenario, and then when the perfect situation arises, bang, you can hit Dark Tidings and use it. I like cards like that. Cards that have good situational top burns. You're going to hold out for the right opportunity to play, but the bottom is very, very usable for most of the scenario or all of the scenarios. So, yep, Dark Tidings, I think, is a good overall card, definitely, and probably one we're going to be using. Next, we have Angry Spirits, which is Summon Wraith. So this is a summon that isn't a skeleton for the first time. So we have health of 1, attack of 1, movement 2, but it has range of 3. So this is a ranged summon. Also, it has shield 2 and flying. Interesting. Creates dark when you play it, 2 XP, but this is a lost summon. So this is, once it's burned, it's once it's in play, it's in play. You can't replay this. And I think this is pretty powerful. Now, traditionally, the ranged summons have always been the best ones in Gloomhaven, and I can't imagine that would really change with Frosthaven, just because they can sit behind the line and they can just comfortably hit something every single turn without getting themselves into too much trouble by drawing focus from enemies, especially if you've already got a frontliner type character in your party, someone who's going to sit at the front and be that melee character at the front. There's a good chance that this Wraith is going to be pretty safe. The shield 2 is interesting. It's kind of saying that it could survive 1 random attack, is kind of like where they're at with that. So it's going to be able to potentially just randomly not get killed, but the 1 health is obviously a bit of a problem, so the shield 2 helps kind of counteract that. Flying is great because that means that 2 movement is maybe not quite so bad, because that 2 movement is a little bit low, but when you have flying, at least then they can move through obstacles and traps and things without getting themselves hurt. So that's good. So that means that the Wraith actually might be able to keep up a little bit more. So you can't underestimate that for sure. It's interesting that you can't enhance the attack 1, but you can enhance everything else. Perhaps they found that enhancing this up to 2 attack early was maybe a bit too strong. Kind of interesting, really. The attack 1, obviously at level 1, this could end up doing no damage. You do have a lot of poison though. This character has a huge amount of poison, so if you're attacking things that are poisoned, then that's going to be an additional point of damage, right? Poison works really, really well if you have multiple sources of damage, multiple attacks coming from different angles. It really does add up. Definitely a good summon. Definitely a good summon. And something that can be used. Whether or not we're going to be able to support burning too many, I'm not so sure. Is this a summon that you play very early on? With a hand size of 12, you can probably support burning another summon, I think. So, interesting. Well, it's going to be seeing how we're going to do, but this is no way to underestimate this. This is a very strong summon just because of the ranged, really, and with the poison and stuff. This is going to end up maybe not doing anything sometimes, but a lot of the time this is going to have an effect. On the next death of one of your summons, due to damage from an attack, the attacker suffers 2 damage. So this is interesting. This is a really kind of neat little thing here, right? This is an interesting effect. It's like Retaliate, but it's not Retaliate, because the way that Retaliate works is it only would trigger if you do not die during the attack, right? If the enemy kills your summon doesn't have the chance to retaliate because they're dead. So this one is interesting because it does mean that they still get the damage. Essentially, it's better than Retaliate because it plays through, but If the enemy was to say draw or miss, then nothing would happen. The interesting thing as well is it is an active area, so it will go into your active area until it happens. So I guess if they were to draw or miss, that's not so much of a problem. It could just hang around in your active area until it happens. It's not a burn as well, which is pretty good. I think this is okay. I know that we have ways to kill our own summons, which is interesting. I think this initiative might be a bit of a problem for this effect, though, so we'll see. Hopefully we have something early that we can pair with it, because this kind of feels to me like something that you want to play early. Unless, of course, you want to play it late and then just leave it out in your active area until it happens. You don't necessarily have to try and make it happen on that round, but I think that would be quite a nice thing to do. You certainly don't want this thing hanging out in your active area between rests. I definitely would advise against that, because that's going to potentially hurt you in the long run. If you've got this card out doing absolutely nothing, then it's that's going to hurt you for sure. Next up we have Fell Remedy, which is heal 2, target one ally within range 3. We can consume Earth to add additional +2. We can consume Dark to consume another additional +2, and we get 1 XP for the Dark consumption. So this is pretty good. This is also one that you can enhance. It's a nice enhanced one here, so you could enhance this with Strengthen or Bless or something like that if you really wanted to. This is the difference, I think, between the other heal, right? The other heal that we had was sort of, we didn't really have to do too much, but we had to take the 2 damage, 5 heal. I feel like this heal is much, much better, although the positioning of this heal on the card is arguably better, because it's nice to have heals on the bottom sometimes. It means that you don't have to give up a top action, right, to do a heal. But in terms of like the value, this is obviously very strong, and generating Earth at least is not going to be too difficult. Dark is a little bit more tricky so far, right? Dark, the only 2 ways we've had to reliably generate so far is to summon Wraith, and this is a one-time thing. And then you've got this as well, which is, you know, going to make it, but it's a heal action. So you probably don't want to use this on another heal action the following turn. Probably a little bit strange. I think it's I think this is pretty good. This is pretty good. The range 3 is nice actually as well. It means that you will be able to probably find an ally to heal, and yeah, this is fine. 30 initiative is okay. Not amazing, but this is on the earlier side of things, so definitely our earliest initiative we've had so far, which, yeah, this is the earliest we've had so far, and it's welcomed, but it's certainly not, we're not looking at 10s, you know, sub 10 or between 10 and 20, which is really where you want to be. That's where the really early initiatives really sort of shine. The bottom is heal oneself. If any enemy has died this round, perform heal oneself. So potentially we can heal ourselves for 2, which basically negates the damage from a summon. It's interesting. We can't enhance these. That's interesting. They don't want to make it too powerful. Also, the way that this is, if any enemy has died this round, this is encouraging you to go late, because if you go early and you go earlier than perhaps some of your other mercenaries on your team, which 30 initiative, maybe that could happen, then perhaps this doesn't do anything. It just heals 1, and that is an incredibly weak action. It's difficult to say, really. This could just be a very necessary card for this character to function, similar to how some of the other characters like the Deathwalker just needs some shadow generation and some shadow movement. It's maybe not the most glamorous action in the world to take, and by most standards, it's pretty underpowered. Same with the Drifter and moving tokens back, right? There's certain things that the characters do which just kind of enables their character to keep doing what it is that they do. And this could be that card for the Boneshaper. It looks like it could be. So perhaps this card will be a necessary evil. I think that the heal on the top is pretty decent if you can consume one of these elements. Obviously, Dark would be the preferential one here to get the XP, but the Earth is seemingly a little bit easier for you to make. At least you've got an easy attack to make the Earth. So yeah, this card may end up just being necessary for this character, and that's the way that I'm sort of feeling about it right now, is that it's just necessary. Next, we have Flow of the Black River, which is heal X +1 self, where X is the number of your summons. So here we go. Here's like potentially a pretty decent heal. If you've got 2 or 3 summons out, it's always going to be +1. So this could probably be like a heal 3, potentially a heal 4. That's really nice, I think. That's pretty decent. If you could heal 4 off of this, you're very happy, and that will allow you to resummon again. That gives you basically enough health points to play 2 more summons, or potentially to heal an ally. This is quite nice as well, because this is on the top right, so we could heal ourselves, and then we could immediately go into the big the big heal here and use some of that health that we just sort of heal back to heal an ally. So there's some counterplay there. And also looking at the initiative on this card, this is the earliest initiative we've had so far. 18 initiative, that's very good. We're happy with that. Good to see that we've got one early initiative here, and this could potentially flow very nicely into that bottom action there, I think. This is okay. Again, maybe one of the more kind of like necessary things. Certainly the 18 initiative has got me excited to take this card regardless, because we haven't had anything earlier than that, and I would love to have a couple of earlies and a couple of lates. So generally speaking, I like to try and design my characters around having lots of early initiatives. So go before the enemies and kill them before they get to act is always the plan for me. And also allowing our summons to act early, potentially before enemies, getting some hits in maybe before they die, and get attacked themselves. The bottom is move 2. Grant one of your summons move 2. Interesting. So summons are also going to be able to move a little bit there. The 2 movement for you is obviously not great. It's like a default action, standard. But being able to grant one of your summons and move 2 could be nice. I think like the top is probably where you're at with this card. You kind of like maybe make a load of summons early, take a load of damage, and then you play this as a very early initiative to allow your summons to go early, and then you can heal up a bunch yourself maybe. And then if the summons die, you know, the enemies attack them and they die, then great, you've recovered some health. You can then start playing them again. So I think that that's a nice loop with this character for sure, and this allows you to continue that loop on. So you're probably going to end up playing this for the top more often than not, it feels like, but this is nice between rooms potentially, and to get your summons into certain spots. Also, as you level up, I imagine that this will probably get a bit better because we're going to get access to some better summons. And if there's some certain summons that lag behind or need a bit of a push forwards towards the front, this is going to really help. So to begin with, this is probably going to be from level 1. I imagine this is really where we're going to be at, because it's going to keep us going. Whereas maybe as we progress, we get a bit more health, we get some more powerful summons. Perhaps granting one of those summons is actually going to be really, really good too. Excellent card for this character, and it's going to be a role player for it for sure. Command the Wretched. Grant one of your summons +0 move, attack +0, consume dark for Pierce 2. So basically just give one of your summons their default move and attack. It's essentially what it is. So whatever their default move and attack is, that's what they're going to do. And then they can consume dark to get a Pierce 2, which is nice. Pierce 2 is going to really carry some of these low level summons against certain enemies who have shield. So we already know that shield and Pierce is going to be used a fair bit more in Frosthaven. We don't know exactly when, but speaking to some of the playtesters, I know that the Pierce is going to be more useful than it was potentially in original Gloomhaven. So valuing Pierce, I think you have to value Pierce a bit higher. And it's also why I think we've seen a lot more Pierce than perhaps we saw on the starters in Gloomhaven. So this is, yeah, this is nice. I think if you can get the Pierce 2, that kind of guarantees that they're going to get a decent attack off, hopefully. So quite nice, not bad. It's basically sacrificing your attack maybe for this, but this character hasn't actually had any attacks themselves yet. So this is going to be the way that we do damage, I guess. We don't actually have any ways to attack ourselves, just ways we can poison. We have that very small little attack, ranged attack with poison, right? But that's the only other top attack that we've had for this character. So interesting to see. 83 initiative is bad. Another bad late initiative. Is this an action that you want to do early? I would say probably. I would like to do the top of this card most of the time early, sometimes late though, sometimes late, especially if you've just played the summons out and they're lagging behind a little bit. I think it's a card you want to play either early or late, and this gives you an initiative that could allow you to go last. So yeah, I think it's probably okay. The bottom is grant one ally attack 5, 1 XP, but this is a burn. So they have to be adjacent because they're not getting the move, right? And it's grant one ally, so doesn't have to be a summon, could just be a mercenary, a friend of choice. That's good. Could be a summon that is, you know, somebody else's summon, for example. This says grant one of your summons, right? So this character definitely just wants to focus on their own summons, whereas this allows you to maybe give it to somebody else's summons, so there might be some synergy there. But an attack 5 for a burn, it is on the bottom, which is quite nice. So you can kind of potentially do double attack, you know, poison something and then get an ally to attack it. That could be nice. You know, do your little ranged attack, then allow the ally to follow up and get the benefit of that poison immediately. That's pretty cool. There's no range on this as well, which is nice. The ally has to do a melee attack, but there's no range from you. So no matter where you are in the level, you can grant the ally the attack. So it's quite a nice kind of, oh, we didn't kill something and we really needed to kill something, then this could maybe do that for you. I'm okay with this. I think this card's fine. And again, this scales okay with the summons. If you end up unlocking better summons later on down the line, perhaps this is actually really, really good, getting them to attack twice in a turn, essentially, because they've taken their own turn, then you're going to take your turn and give them another one. So, you know, role player type top, we're the bottom. That's probably a little bit underwhelming, but it is like a get out of jail style effect that could kill something in a pinch if you really needed to, or attempt to kill something in a pinch, right? So it's okay. Eternal Torment is curse range 5, so that's a really decent amount of range there. Grant one of your summons adjacent to the target of the curse ability, attack +0, and then generate dark. Now this is an attack I can get behind. Yeah, I really like this. Just cursing something, getting a 1 free curse, getting one of your summons to be able to do an attack, and generating dark as well on the top. Yeah, I can get behind this. The best way so far that we've seen to generate dark. You could just use this to just curse, even if this doesn't happen, because this line separates the ability, right? So you can use this card as just a curse, you know, range 5, which is a bit weak, but it's something, and it generates dark, which maybe would be useful on a following turn. So one of our best controlling effects for sure that we've had so far. Also would be good to play this, and then, you know, on the next turn you can then follow up and play this, right? Which is really nice, and then they can get their pierce. So that's a nice sort of sequence of turns you've got there. 70 initiative is bad. This character has so many late initiatives. We really need some more early initiatives, in my opinion. I feel like there's going to be some instances when your summons are just going to die before you even get to use them, and that could be a bit of a problem. We'll see. I hope not, but we'll see. Maybe. The bottom of this is grant one of your summons loot 1 with you gaining all looted tokens and tiles. Now that is a pretty useful loot ability. And in fact, you can move and loot potentially, right? So you could do this all in one turn. I mean, it's a bit strange, but you could actually move and then loot. And because you're actually controlling this now with the grant keyword, that could be really nice. My main reservation with a lot of loot actions is they don't do a lot, or they're more difficult and you have to kind of give up a whole turn. You don't necessarily have to give up a whole turn to play this, so I quite like it. I think this is going to be quite a usable loot ability for this character for sure. Yeah, Eternal Torment. I like this card. I just wish this initiative was slightly different because, oh man, we just need some more early initiatives. Or at least for my personal preference of how I want to play, I want some more early initiatives. All right, ask and you shall receive, I guess. Malicious Conversion. We've got 26 initiative here. Attack 4. If this attack kills the target, immediately play a card from your discard pile to perform a summon action of the card, reducing any damage you suffer by 2. Interesting. So this is a melee attack. This is us performing the melee attack, which is a bit strange. We're not really a character who's, or at least so far, doesn't feel like we need to be in the mix. We have a lot of ranged abilities. However, if it does kill the target, we can immediately play a card from our discard pile to perform a summon action of the card, reducing any damage we suffer by 2. So it's basically a free skeleton, and it's from our discard pile. So obviously we have to have them in our discard pile. If they had them in our hands, that's no good. You could always, I guess, discard the summon from your active area if you didn't have any in your discard pile before you perform the attack. That would work here. And then you would have one in your discard pile and you could bring it back. That seems pretty good. Can make both earth and dark. That's just nice upside there. Really nice upside. Can fuel up your next turn with a really powerful dual consume. You've got a couple of abilities that consume both. So you've got this, and you've also got this, for example. I think this actually will potentially work quite nicely to be able to then feed immediately into these kinds of actions. That could be quite good. For a burn, I think it's not bad. It's not bad at all. The attack 4 has a good chance of killing something. You don't necessarily have to worry like if the enemy is on, 2 or 3 health. There's still a chance you could miss. I think if you miss on this, that's a pretty big whiff, I would feel really rough. It would feel really, really rough to draw your miss on this attack, or just to kind of come up just short, right? The enemy's on 3 health and you draw like a -2 at level 1 and you don't get it. that could be really rough. So there's certainly a bit of RNG to this one. Probably want to be attacking something that's like on 2 health rather than something that's on 3 or 4 health to try and actually guarantee that kill and get that summon action. The bottom here is move 3, but we can consume Earth to actually add an additional +2. So this could be a move 5. So this character has poor mobility, but we've had 2 move 4s and now potentially a move 5. I think that's decent. And actually going by, you know, the way that this card is designed, I would say that this is going to be a card that a bottom that you're going to be using a lot. 26 initiative, we need early initiatives, as we've said, so that fulfills that role, and it's got movement on the bottom. Yeah, this is just going to be a role player. So I quite like this card in the sense that you've got a lot of potential movement on the bottom here, but move 3 is still nothing to complain about. And you've got a situational top here that could give you some extra value. Could be quite nice to get some XP and a free summon out of it. I think that's okay. It's not, this isn't busted, I will say that. It's not completely busted. It's not completely changing the balance of the game. It's nice that you're basically getting a free summon action out of it. You don't necessarily have to spend a whole turn making a summon. And that is nice and very thematic for the character for sure. Yeah, I like this card a lot. I think the bottom is going to be the thing you're going to be playing a lot. The initiative and the bottom is going to be where it's at for you a lot of the time. And then this top is going to give you a really nice turn at some point and a really good following turn too because of the 2 elements. So our first X card is Approach Oblivion, which is heal 4, target all allies within range 2, and bless. That's actually really good, really good. Oh, it's a burn here, so that'll be why. You definitely take that. Healing 4 in like a 4 mercenary party, that could be great. Obviously, your summons only have 3 health, or your skeletons do, and then your spirit only has 1 health. So this isn't really very effective at healing your own summons because the chances are your summons might be, you know, close to death. And also, the character kind of wants to rotate the summons, right, in a weird way. So you almost want your summons to die so that you can get them into your discard piles and then you can get them back and play them. That's where you're getting the value, right? So actually this is more of a support ability for healing fellow mercenaries rather than it is for healing your summons. You're going to take 2 damage yourself though, and you're going to curse yourself. 2 XP burn. The 2 damage to yourself is okay, I guess. Like I said, if you're playing a 4 mercenary party and you could say heal, let's say a total of 10 points of damage with this, right? Across everybody. So in total, that was 10 points of damage healed. Is that worth the 2 damage? I would say so, yes. I would say that's probably pretty good. It's better value than the other card, for sure. The curse self is okay if you're playing this as more of a support character and the skeletons are more designed to be, you know, soaking damage and more of a support kind of element. This character doesn't have great damage output that we've seen so far, that's for sure. It's very kind of small incremental damage with some good tanking abilities because of the fact that these summons are going to just take damage for you. The ability to heal allies, so good sort of support, and a bit of that control with the cursing and poisoning and stuff, right? Feels very much like we are a support character so far. Damage is not our main ability, so being cursed is maybe not so much of a downside for that type of character. However, obviously, if you were to curse yourself, this again could really upset this. So probably want to play this before you play this, I would say. The bottom is grant one of your summons, move 3, and then generate air, which is a bit interesting. We don't use that element ourselves. In fact, that element didn't even show up on the elemental affinities tab, I don't think. So that's just purely going to be fodder for another class. It's nice to have. Depends on your party comp. You might find that this is actually incredibly useful for your party composition. So that's definitely something to consider. Potentially on like the Geminate or someone like that, someone who needs an element to be able to convert. This could be quite a nice little card in collaboration with the Geminate, perhaps. 53 initiative is bad, right there in no man's land, right in the middle. Not something that we can really use. So Approach the Oblivion in general, I think is a pretty average card. The bottom is maybe a bit more useful for collaborating with the Banner Spear as well. Being able to get into formations and things like that could be quite useful. I think Approach the Oblivion is, you know, what an X card should be, which is a situational sort of sideboardy type card. Next, we have Exploding Corpse, which is designate one of your summons and perform an attack for target all enemies adjacent to the designated summon. Kill the designated summon, create fire. So that's another new element there that we don't really use. So 1 XP, and it is a burn though. Now I really like these big, I've always been a big fan of big attack AoEs. They're great. I really like that they can swing a scenario in your favor. If you've managed to do a lot of poisoning before this as well, that means this attack 4 could be more like an attack 5 against certain enemies. And that could be just really, really useful. In terms of like a big burn damage attack, this is up there. This is very strong and fun as well, more importantly. So this could be really, really good. And killing the designated summon is obviously not really a downside on a skeleton, but could be a considerable downside to other summons that you have. But an attack 4, and if this could target, say, 3 things, you'd be really, really happy. 21 initiative is super good, so maybe we bring this card just for the initiative. We've been looking for some more early initiatives again, so 21, that's there. So not quite our earliest, but pretty much. So let's take a look at this. When the next enemy dies this round, all allies and enemies adjacent to the enemy who died suffer 2 damage. That could be very, very good. This actually reminds me a lot of some unlockable abilities or unlockable classes abilities in Gloomhaven that has something similar to this. Not quite exactly the same, but pretty similar. Now, true damage or direct damage, whatever you want to call it, has always been very, very strong because it goes through shield. You don't have to draw attack modifiers, so you don't run that risk of missing. This could be incredibly playable, actually. This might have just, I mean, I really like the top anyway, but I think this has probably put this card over the top now as something that could be very, very playable. 21 initiative as well. You play it out on the round when something's going to die. You can go early, then the enemy dies that round, does the 2 damage to things. I think that's really good. The only annoying thing, I guess, is that your summons will go before you. So if your summon was to kill something, that would be bad. It's also just this round. So compared to the other one, which stayed out, right? Which is when your summon died, it did 2 damage. That card actually stayed in your active area permanently until it happens. This is only a round effect. So if you don't kill anything, you've kind of wasted an action. So it's a bit risk reward there, but I think you probably have a really good opportunity to do this. And you don't have to like specify which enemy. It is just any enemy dies. So yeah, this is going to work quite nicely, I think. All of the ally thing is a bit of a downside to this, right? Your skeletons can survive that because they have 3 health, but this is a significant drawback. It's kind of like the crag heart, right? Doing a bit of self damage to your team can sometimes be a bit tricky, and maybe you won't want to play the bottom of this at certain instances because actually it's going to be bad. This probably scales a bit better with player count because with 4 players, you're going to have more enemies on the board. Therefore, there's more likelihood that you can do this 2 damage to more things. So this whole card does actually scale with player count quite well, but this top attack is great. I think for a burn effect, it's lovely and it's definitely something that you want, and this can be very, very useful too. So Exploding Corpse, this is probably going to be a slam dunk card, and if at worst it's going to be a 21 initiative move 2, which is probably going to be fine. Next we have Wrath of the Turned Earth, which is grant one of our summons attack 1. You can consume earth to add poison to the attack. That's pretty nice. With a skeleton, that would be an attack 3. Then we can add poison to the attack, which is pretty good. Would I say it makes the card, like, do you have to consume the earth? I don't necessarily think so. I think you're okay probably with this. You have a lot of ways to poison here. Just granting one of your summons an attack +1. It's going to work quite well as well with some of the unlockable ones when we get to those. On the next 3 sources of damage to one of your summons, prevent the damage. And this is a burn, 3-time use. This is pretty good. Bit of tanking. Allow your summon to kind of stick around for a round. Again, I find like this kind of effect, generally speaking, I'm not a huge fan of. But mainly because I feel like you want to be a bit more proactive. But on certain scenario types, you can't underestimate that this kind of thing could win you the scenario. If you need to survive 10 rounds and you whack a summon out in front of you, you can also just play the summon because it's top and then immediately play this for the bottom and just be like, please don't die. I'm just going to stay here and hopefully we can survive for this scenario. That works quite well. It's in the right place. It's on the right half of the card, I would say. Interesting effect. I think the top is very playable though, so we'll see. The bottom of this is situationally quite good, and yeah, could win you a scenario. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the level 2 cards and beyond. So if you are worried about spoilers for higher level cards, now here's the time to switch off, but we're going to be moving on to all of those. They're not really considered to be spoilers in the general sense of the game, because you can always look through, and I do kind of encourage people to have a bit of a plan as they are leveling their characters, because that does help you build a more focused build for your character and a more interesting one, if you know that you're planning for a card that you're going to get at a higher level. So it is always worth mentioning that, though, because some people do like the surprise of seeing what cards they get at each level up. So level 2, we have Unearthed Horror, which is Summon Raging Corpse. So this is a 6 health summon with 3 attack on move 2, and it generates Earth, 2 XP, but this is a burn summon, so we can't replay this. I think this is probably pretty weak in my opinion. The 6 health is double what our skeletons are. The attack 3 is an additional 1 to what our summon is, and the move 2 is the same. I feel like this guy is just going to get himself killed. Unfortunately, we do have ways maybe of stopping that happening, but it does feel like this summon is a little bit underpowered, I would say, for what is a burn summon. Creates Earth, but it's only the one time when we play it, so that kind of sucks. It would be nice maybe if it generated Earth every turn, then that would be interesting and maybe could be useful. But I feel like this is a pretty underwhelming summon, to be honest, compared to the fact that we have skeletons that have 3 health that we can kind of repeatedly play. I don't know why we would want to have a summon like this that's just basically got +1 attack and a little bit more health. We could maybe heal it a lot, I guess. This at least is a summon that we could heal, but I don't know. It feels like you're one bad turn away from dying, and that's the problem with a lot of summons. The problem with a lot of summons is that the enemy flips a really bad card for you from their ability deck, and your summon just dies out of nowhere. And the fact you can't replay this, I think, is basically the same problem that a lot of summons in Gloomhaven had, and I think this one's going to have the same problems again. The bottom is grant one of your summons poison, target all at range 1, create a... Now that is very playable though, especially if you've managed to get a summon into a good spot, or if you've maybe used a move yourself, right? We had some move stuff at level 1 to allow us to move a summon and attack. This could be really good. Potentially you could poison 2 or 3 things with this. I think that's very strong. So Unearthed Horror, the top is, I would say, very underwhelming summon, really, but the bottom is actually very good, and it creates an element as well. So this could feed really nicely into some of your other abilities and other cards. So I like the bottom of this a lot, but this top summon I think is kind of unplayable, which is fine because we know that we're going to be wanting to use the bottom a lot. But 94 initiative is, again, a summoning initiative, so very, very late. The other level 2 card we have is Bone Dagger, which is attack 4 with Curse, and we get to add +1 for each of our summons. Wow, okay, so this is a melee attack. So let's say maybe we have 2 or 3 summons. The summons don't have to be adjacent, they just have to exist. Also, if we have any summoning items we can get in the game, so maybe there's, you know, the skeleton ring like there was in Gloomhaven, so maybe we can get some other summons. So there's some opportunity here to pump these figures up, right? But it is a burn. Okay, so this could be maybe as good as an attack 5, 6, maybe 7 melee for a burn. Is that worth it? It probably is against certain enemies. Like if there's an elite or something, or a boss, be quite good. Boss might be immune to curse though, which means that you don't get the benefit of that curse. I'm traditionally not a huge fan of big single target burns unless they're on a character that really can kind of maximize that. You know, I'm thinking of the Scoundrel. Scoundrel can obviously have a really good turn with Smoke Bomb and Backstab. That's like an insane amount of damage. But this is kind of like just an okay amount of damage rather than insane, I would say. So I'm not sold on the top of Bone Dagger. Also, because it's a melee attack, we're going to have to be in the right position, which we might not always be. The 29 initiative, though, is good. So it's nice to see that we got another kind of early initiative, sub 30. It's not super early, but it's okay. And we've got Curse, range 2. And then we can consume Dark to increase that range up to 4 potentially. But if the target dies this round, immediately play a card from your discard pile to perform a summon action of the card, reducing any damage you suffer by 2. Wow, okay. So this is like the same as the other one that we had, right? So very similar to the other one, but this is summoning rather than doing the damage. So this is pretty nice. Kind of mixes together this with this, right? These two things kind of get mixed together to create this kind of effect. However, this is specifically the target though, so you have to actually target something, and it's only if that target dies But I think that this is pretty strong. Getting free summon actions is going to be hugely important for this character. I don't think we can really understate that, because you will end up spending a lot of your turns just replaying the skeletons, which is fine, but it does slow your character down, right? It's not fun if you're, as a character, all you're doing is playing a summon, then the next turn, playing another summon, and then the next turn, playing another summon. And then it's like, okay, great, maybe play 2 turns with stuff that isn't summons, and then you immediately go back to summoning again. It just doesn't, it won't feel like it will be very fun. Whereas this kind of allows you to break that loop and allow you to play these other cards and really kind of, I guess, keep that value of the summons going and going and going, right? I think that's going to be quite important, is keeping that value churning on those summons. So, oof. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the tops of either of these 2 cards, actually. I think that both of them are pretty miserable. Now, generating the earth here is pretty nice, and this poison is also really quite nice. But getting a free summon action, I think it's hard to pass up a free summon action. It really is. And this is like an okay attack. I think, like, in terms of the 2 tops, I think that I prefer Bone Dagger than I do Raging Corpse. Even though we have synergy, obviously, with summons, I feel like this could just be quite useful towards the end of a scenario to just try and do a bit of damage and kill something, right? Just to try and kill something right towards the end. I think this could be good. And the 29 initiative as well is another kind of initiative that we'd be interested to have in our hand. This kind of effect doesn't work massively well with the 29, I will say that, because there's a chance that some of our quicker allies will have gone before us here. Anything that happens in a round needs to be early, right? You want to have the entire round for this to happen. And the 29 initiative does not guarantee that by any means. I personally will probably be going with Bone Dagger, but to be honest, they're pretty similar because of the bottom. I think the bottoms are definitely where it's at for both of these. I'm siding towards this because it's a free summon action. So at level 3, we have another skeleton. So it's 3 health, move 2, attack 2, 1 damage to ourselves this time though. So not quite as bad. You know, the other ones were 2, so slightly upgraded in that respect. But that is literally it. So if you wanted a 4th skeleton, here you go. Here's your 4th skeleton, right? And pretty good. The bottom here is play a card from your discard pile to perform a summon action of the card. Interesting. And this is 1 damage, 1 health as well. Okay, so this actually can allow you to get summons out really quite quickly and efficiently. I like this. The fact that this does, however, this will also, I believe, does not negate this. This is additional damage, right? This does not, compared to something like this, right? This negates, right? Reducing any damage you suffer by 2. This actually adds an additional damage. So if we were to play one of the original skeletons, this would actually be 3 damage to ourselves. That's pretty bad, but this is a way that maybe we could play like the Living Spirit, or if you went for the Raging Corpse, you could maybe play that instead as a way. So there's definitely some really good synergy here, but it's a lot of damage. Doing 3 damage to yourself just to get 1 out, I'm not so sure. And then if you think about it, that if you wanted to play another skeleton on the top, that's pretty crazy. You'd end up sort of taking maybe 5 points of damage in very, very quick succession. Not sure how I really rate this, but creates earth is a nice, easy way to create earth. I do like, though, the fact that we can just get them back. This keeps you going as well. I feel like these are going to be quite powerful. I really do. But obviously, negating the damage is really where the big power level lies. This is really not as good a version of this effect as this. Obviously, quite clearly, it's very much worse. The only real benefit being the create earth on the bottom. The other level 3 we have is Putrid Cloud, which is designate one of your summons and perform attack 2. Target all enemies adjacent to the designated summon. Nice. And then kill the designated summon, create earth. Now that is strong. Now that's the kind of thing that you want. That's a repeatable exploding corpse right there. That is really what you want. And it adds poison to it. Perfect. Yeah, this is obviously a huge role play. You're pretty happy, to be honest. If you could attack, you know, even though just a smaller number as 2 or 3 things, I think this is great value. Really, really good value. It's just poison 2 or 3 things, get a little attack off, create earth. Yeah, this is great. Really, really good. In terms of attack cards, this may be the best attack card we've had so far in terms of a repeatable one, right? Because this isn't a burn as well. That's another important thing. Really, really like the top of Putrid Cloud. This is going to be probably the card that a lot of people are going to pick, I would think, just for this top action. The bottom is whenever an enemy attacks you or one of your summons, that enemy gains poison. If the enemy already has poison, the enemy suffers one. Ooh, see, this is spicy as well. This is really cool as well. This kind of gets you to play into that kind of grindy nature. And I don't see grindy in like a bad way. It can be quite fun, especially if you've played some of the unlockable characters in Gloomhaven. No spoilers here, but this kind of grindy way of playing, of eking out this incremental value as you kind of throw skeletons out, and I feel like that's going to be a really interesting and fun way to play. And this is certainly something that you want to play the top of this a few times. I can see this maybe in the final room could be quite good, because you could just keep playing this, and then when they've all been poisoned, great, chuck the bottom of this out. I mean, the fact that the enemy gains poison, though, maybe that's quite good too, just gaining it. This is a hell of a card, by the way. The top is an amazing attack, really, really cool, very thematic for what the character wants to do, and just delivers a lot. Whereas the bottom just, it's like something that you can play and you really just, you just feel free, right? You don't have to try and orchestrate this, which is can be quite difficult. So sometimes, especially if you're playing, you know, a character and you're not very confident with moving summons around, or you're not very confident with your ability to be able to get summons into the right place, because this definitely is increased kind of complexity. I would say that this is fairly low complexity. You can play this on turn 1 with a summon, right? Because all of the skeletons are top actions. You can just play this and play a skeleton on turn 1, and it's like, great, we're going to start getting poison advantage, poison value immediately as it goes on, right? As the scenario goes on. So 28 initiative as well on a top attack like this is quite nice. It's not amazing, but again, I would really like for us to have another sub 20 initiative. We don't have. Even a sub 10 would be nice. But so between these two cards, do you want the extra skeleton? I don't know. This is obviously really good. This is a difficult choice. Very, very difficult choice. I just think the top of this is, I'm always drawn to damage effects, so I'm always drawn to this kind of thing. I think I would probably be going for Putrid Crowd. I think this is going to be one of the hallmark attacks for this character, and one of the kind of cornerstone attacks, if you like. Man, this is still decent. It's maybe a bit too much of a drawback. You're going to have to be very careful with your health and managing your health with this character. Level 4, we have Critical Failure. Grant one of your summons attack +1. We can consume Dark to grant 2 of our summons the attack ability instead. That's pretty nice. In fact, that's really nice. If you're even just with normal skeletons, that's, you know, they have 2 base, so that would be attack 3. So that would be 6. That would be like a, you know, attack 6 essentially. 2 attacks of 3. That's pretty decent. And if the enemy is poisoned as well, then that's even more. That could go up to 8. Really strong. Really, really strong attack, I think. Very, very good, and certainly something that is an upgrade over the other one that we had. So we had a similar ability like this, which was just a normal +1, just a 1. If you can consume Dark to get 2, I think this is really where the power level of this card lies. It's basically doubling it, right? It really is. It is doubling the effectiveness of the card. So I think you really want to have Dark to consume this. Interesting that it doesn't give you any XP. Cards that are non-burn, that don't give you XP and stuff like that, generally speaking, I look at the card like this and I think this is powerful, right? They don't give you XP because this is pretty spammable, so there's no XP gain on it. But this effect is very spammable for sure. The bottom is, if Curse causes an enemy to deal no damage during its attack, grant all of your summons adjacent to the enemy +0 targeting the enemy. This is 95 initiative as well, by the way, another late one. A 2 XP burn, but it's permanent effect. So if the curse would cause an enemy to deal no damage during its attack, grant all your summons adjacent to the enemy +0 targeting that enemy. This is kind of interesting. It seems really, really strong on the kind of the base of it, right? This is another one of those, we can't probably support too many of these, by the way. We've had a couple that are like, say, hey, burn this card and you're going to get a permanent ability. Got to be a bit careful about those. We can't have loads of them, but we can obviously play them, you know, throughout the course of the scenario. And so far, both of these cards have got great tops that I think you'd be more than happy to have. So at level 3 this. So you would just play these when the situation really was there. But if a curse would cause an enemy to deal no damage, so you'd have to do a lot of cursing. This is quite RNG heavy. Now, has this character done enough cursing itself in order to support this? I don't think so. Not only does the enemy need to draw a curse, but your summon needs to be adjacent to it to get the value. So against like ranged enemies, maybe this could be really bad. My initial feeling is that there's just, this character doesn't have enough cursing to be able to make this really good. And you're very much putting the fate of the game in the hands of the deck, right? Which I'm never a huge fan of. I'm never a huge fan of kind of doubling down too much on these RNG factors unless you can really heavily move that probability in your favor. And I don't think I've seen enough cursing out of this character to really do this. It's certainly not as good as a Gloomhaven character who has another similar effect. I'm trying to keep everything spoiler free, but I'm sure that there'll be people in the comments or people watching that know which one I'm talking about. There's another unlockable character in Gloomhaven who gets a similar effect to this, and it is miles better than this. So I think I would have to kind of pass on the bottom here. I'm not convinced that we can really reliably do this, but the top of this is very strong, so perhaps that will carry the card through. The other card level 4 we have is Flesh Shield, which is grant one ally within range 3, shield 1. We can consume Earth to get shield +1. Also retaliate 1 and consume Dark to get retaliate +2. So well, +1, so 2 total. Now, shield 2, retaliate 2 to one ally within range 3. Is that good? Yes, that's pretty good. Also, we have some really nice ways to, generate Earth and Dark. Do I think you want the shield more than you want the retaliate? Probably. I think that most players will probably go for the shield over the retaliate. The reason being, shield is good against ranged enemies as long as they don't have pierce, but the retaliate is only going to work against melee. So shield is generally what you want to go for. So I think consuming the Earth is really the bare minimum here. If you would just grant an ally shield 1, retaliate 1, is that worth a card? For level 4, maybe not so much. So perhaps that's a bit low power level for level 4. But if you could get shield 2, retaliate 2, you're pretty happy. If you could get shield 2, retaliate 1, I think you're still pretty happy. 16 initiative though, that's our earliest initiative yet, so perhaps we're taking this card just for that. Definitely would be interested in getting up another early initiative. And the other card we weren't hugely sold on, but the top was good. I think that the top of the other card plays more to my sensibilities than this one, but we'll see. So the bottom here is 2 damage to yourself, so some more self damage. On the next source of damage to one of your summons, prevent the damage. Okay. Not great. I don't really like the bottom of this. No, I really don't, actually. It feels very weak. It feels like a very, very weak action, especially if you're going for the skeletons. I guess it depends really on what you go for with this character. Certain people may end up going for a build that revolves around summons that are not the skeletons, and I think that could be absolutely fine. But I would prefer to go with the skeletons, and I think that while preventing a skeleton from dying, it's going to cost me 2 health to resummon it. So in a way, it's kind of like, well, you're taking the 2 damage. If you didn't have to take the 2 damage, I think maybe this might be more playable, but I'm not seeing it. The top is pretty playable. The bottom could just be a move 2 on 16 initiative, which is going to be good. My heart really wants me to go for critical failure, because I feel like the top of this is really good value for if you're going for more of a damage and you want to be more active with your damage dealing and you want to get stuck in. But the 95 initiative is poor. The bottom, I think, is a bit of a trap, maybe. And the this is okay. Pretty fine. You can obviously do it to one of your summons or to one of your tanks, a Drifter or Banner Spear if you've got one in your party. But also just having a move 2 on initiative 16 is potentially all you're going to want. Maybe a bit of an underwhelming choice by going for this. Say my heart is telling me to go for critical failure for the top, but I think my head is ultimately going to land here with Flesh Shield, because 16 initiative as just a move 2 is going to be very, very useful. And this is not a bad ability, but I'm really not sold on the bottom here. So level 5, we have Unforgivable Methods, which is Summon Stitched Atrocity on the top. We have 8 health, 3 attack, 2 move with wound, and deal 2 damage to yourself. So this is a big boy. This is a big summon. And suitably, actually, I think that this is kind of okay. For a level 5 summon, this is probably pretty much what you would kind of expect. 8 health is okay. Not amazing, but certainly you can tank a hit or 2. It is a melee. It's attack 3. The wound is nice, though, being able to do some wound, especially if you manage to blow this up and do some attacks. For example, it would work really, really well with Pusher Crowd, right? Because you would actually end up wounding everything with this. So this has a really, really good synergy, apart from this bit. This bit's obviously not really what you want to do, but I mean, it could essentially do a lot for you, right? There's potential there that this could do something crazy. But if he's only on 2 health or something like that, then this does not become as much of a downside, right? I still feel like when you play with these summons, you are 1 bad flip away from losing. The move 2 is going to hurt this one quite a bit, I think. Especially in longer scenarios, you're going to have to move it yourself or try and use your abilities to move it. But could have some good synergy with like the Banner Spear as well, I think. So yeah, it's an okay one. 98 initiative, late summoning initiative again. Heal 3, range 2, consume earth to +1 target, +1 range. So importantly, this is just one of the first times we've seen a straight normal heal. So this could target us. And that's important for us to think about here because it doesn't say allies. It is just a heal 3 at range 2. So this is quite good. This is the first time we've been able to heal ourselves or heal an ally. So it gives us some versatility to it. Consume earth to get an additional 1 heal, which is nice because that's that magic number of 4, right? Every single thing kind of takes us 2. So that would get us to 4 health. So that's 2 free summons essentially. Quite nice. I think this is okay. As in terms of a heal, this is something that we really probably want. The other card we have is Solid Bones, which is all shambling skeletons have +1 health, +1 move, and pierce 1. Oof. This is a permanent ability we play out. So this means now that instead of having 3 health, they have 4. That's not great. That's probably the worst of these things. +1 move, though, is very relevant. Now they're going to be able to move up to 3. That's actually super, super relevant. And I think that could put it over the edge. And that Pierce 1, suddenly, this is now kind of bringing those level 1 summons maybe slightly more in line with what you would need at level 5, right? You would need a little bit more health, a little bit more movement, and that Pierce 1 so they can get through those Shield 1 enemies that have started popping up. It doesn't scale massively well with difficulty levels, though. I think that's worth saying because the Pierce 1 is okay, but if you play on increased difficulty, then enemies suddenly get 2 or 3 shield. The Pierce 1 it's nice, but it's not everything, right? But the +1 move is quite good. So this could be, if you're in on skeletons, this just is a no-brainer, I think. If you are definitely heavily revolving around your skeletons, then this is an absolute no-brainer type effect that you'd want in play for you. 32 initiative, nice. Move 4 on the bottom, good. Okay, that's a good amount of movement. And create earth 2 on 32. So this is nice. I feel like you probably want to play the bottom of this quite a bit. This is just a really good card for powering up your other things. That's a real juxtaposition there because this is obviously something that you want to play early. There's no reason why you wouldn't want to slam this down fairly early. It is on the top though, so you can't play a skeleton at the same time. So maybe you get your skeletons out first, then you play this. But this is definitely a card that will give you repeatable value and could work very nicely in like a combo, right? Where you're like, okay, I play this to get the earth element, then on the next turn I do this, and then it slots very well into your play every single rest cycles. Every single rest cycle, you're going to have good value for this. So out of these 2 cards, the heal is very tempting to go for because I feel like you're going to need more healing, especially healing yourself. The only 2 cards we have were like level 1 cards and they're a bit situational. Possibly this would help our character a lot more, but also this just probably outright replaces some of the level 1 cards that we have as like move 4s and creates earth. And this is obviously very good for the skeleton. So probably going to end up going for Solid Bones, I think, because I'm definitely more interested in messing around with the skeletons. But this could actually end up being a very necessary effect just to keep yourself going, especially if you don't have access to things like healing potions or stuff like that. Other ways maybe you can heal, or somebody else in your party that can throw you the odd heal just to help you out a little bit. But out of these 2 so far, I think I'm going to go with Solid Bones. So level 6, we have Rotting Multitude, and something a little bit special here. We have summon 2 shambling skeletons, exactly the same stats as normal skeletons. The real big downside here is the 6 damage to the self. That is huge amount of damage to ourself, right? But we are getting so much value here. We're getting basically 2 turns in 1 because we might spend 2 turns to make 2 skeletons. That would usually cost us 4 health. So this is, increasing that premium by an additional 2. But I think what's really, really important though to think about with this one is Bone Dagger and the sequence that we can play with Bone Dagger. And that is a huge combo that we can actually pull off with this character. So importantly, the way that Bone Dagger is worded on the bottom of this card. It says, if the target dies this round, immediately play a card from your discard pile to perform a summon action of the card, reducing any damage you suffer by 2. So this would actually bring that 6 damage down to 4, which I think is really, really useful. And that is an incredible amount of value. That then is really getting you that value, I think. Yes, it's still taking damage, but I think that really helps this card become something special. So this is definitely a card that you're going to be wanting to look to resurrect, if you like, using the bottom of Bone Dagger, because it reduces that 6 down to 4, which I think is a manageable amount for this character. And then you're going to be able to get 2 additional summons on the board, which is just huge value. Huge value. There is a significant downside, but the value, I think, pays off. And I think that's a really neat thing with this character. 66 initiative is interesting for a summon action, so it's actually a bit earlier than all of our other summon actions have been so far. The bomb is Consume Dark to move 4 and get 1 XP. Then we can grant one of our summons move 4. So like the top is like an optional thing. So we could Consume Dark to get a move 4 ourselves and get 1 XP. Also, we can just grant one of our summons move 4. Now, this is really nice. Like I said, I think that the top of this has so much combo potential with Bone Dagger. Maybe we end up taking it just for that. Also, the bottom here is also useful for being able to move your summons around. If you're playing with a Banner Spear, perhaps you don't need to move your summons around a little bit. But yeah, trying to negate this downside, I think, is quite important. So reducing this 6 to 4, I think, is huge. That could allow you to have a very big turn and getting skeletons out very, very quickly. I don't think you can really underestimate the power of getting 2 of these guys out. I think that's really, really good. It combos so well with some of our other abilities that matter with how many summons we have. It's a 2-for-1, basically. So yeah, very, very strong, and you're super high. And also, even just playing this maybe on the first turn of the game every time, take the 6 damage. Sure, it's not nice, but you can probably support it, or you can definitely support it at the beginning of the game. And you got 2 summons out for round 2, and I think that's really powerful. The other level 6 we have is Twisted Decree, which is grant one of your summons move +1, attack +1, and you've got Generate Dark on it. Very, very usable effect. Efficient use of your summons, efficient attacking there. I think this is quite nice. Works better with probably the bigger summons, and I think that is definitely something that this character seems to be going between. You have the kind of all in on the skeletons kind of build, where perhaps you're letting them die because they are tanking for you a little bit, and then you're blowing them up a little bit because they're low value summons, you don't care about it. But then you also have this other build, which is using these bigger summons that have a bit more versatility with what it is that they do, and maybe you can do a bit more damage with their turns. So their individual turns might be a bit more impactful than your skeletons. So this would certainly help that. So solid ability, I think very much would work very well with for example, the Stitched Atrocity, if you went down this route with this one for sure. The bottom is attack 1 with range 4, poison and curse. Now that is nice. That's a ranged attack, which is just an attack 1, poison and curse. You take that any day of the week, especially on the bottom, because that means that you can use your top for either a summon action or something else that's useful. That's very good. Very, very good indeed. 85 initiative does kind of blow a little bit for this, I think. It would be nice to have this on an early initiative. Out of these two, I think if you're going down the Shambling Skeletons, you cannot understate the value that you get out of this. It's just really good. Really, really good to be able to kind of accelerate your game plan, and it also has that great synergy with Bone Dagger. The bottom I think is usable as well, and to get this into your discard pile to then use it with Bone Dagger, right? I think it's usable. So I'm probably going to go with Rotting Multitude because it just frees up. I mean, it may also free up one of your other cards, so then maybe you can side in a different card now. Maybe you don't need to take 3 Shambling Skeleton cards anymore. Maybe now you can take 2, or replace this with a Shambling Skeleton card, right? So it could just be a good like-for-like replacement of one of your level 1 skeleton cards. So at level 7 we have Recycled Limbs, which on the top is Consume Earth and Dark to play a card from our discard pile to perform a summon action of the card. See, very nice. Doesn't mitigate the damage that we take though if we're going to go down the Shambling Skeleton route. But again, I think it's extremely powerful to be able to play a summon out of your discard. I think that's just really good recycling, literally, like the card says, recycling these cards out of your discard. Very thematic for this character, and definitely the more powerful side of what this character can do, I think. Then we get to grant all of our summons +0, a move +0, and then an attack +1 action. So This is pretty decent too, being able to move all of your guys in and kind of rush the enemy and immediately make use out of that summon, hopefully, that you've played. Or summons if you've played the double skeleton potentially. So you've got these this kind of rush of summons, which I quite like. I like the idea that we can kind of go from having maybe very few summons on the board to suddenly having a lot over the space of just a few simple turns. This character can definitely kind of just spawn these skeletons all over the place potentially and kind of keep that value going. I really like the theme of playing cards out of your discard, incredibly thematic for a necromancer style character. So yeah, this is good. Now, whether or not this is worth a burn though, it's 2 XP and a burn. I think if you could do all of this card, all of this top action, yes, it probably is worth a burn, especially if you've got maybe 3 or 4 summons on the board. This could be very good, and there's poison, and you've got the shambling skeletons buffs or things like that. You've got other things in play that are going to make these attacks better. I think that could be really good. But without this top action, maybe not so much. Again, it's going to really depend on your situation. At a certain point in the game, you're just going to want to play this, and it's going to be amazing, and it's going to have like it's going to be a great turn for you. 52 initiative though is terrible. No man's land initiative, so again, doesn't really help us out. We'll have to pair this with something. On the bottom is on the next 3 deaths of any figure, perform a heal 2, target 1 ally, range 3. So that's any figure. So that could be a summon, that could be an ally even. It could just be like one of your mercenary friends dies, unfortunately. It could be an enemy. It's basically just when something dies that is a figure, we get to do this heal action. And I think that's quite nice. We can't target ourselves, which is a bit unfortunate. Again, they're definitely trying to nerf that potential with this character. I think initially before the rework, there was a card during the Kickstarter, and I got the feeling that this character could be a bit broken because it got to a point where you could just cycle your summons incredibly fast, and there was no drawback. In fact, there was a card that removed the health drawback very early on this character could pick up. I think it was like at level 3 or 4. So they completely rejigged that and moved that card much later. We haven't even got to it yet. I think that this kind of thing here is about keeping you honest. It's a very good support ability though, and it's a non-burn, and it's generates dark. So I think that this is an okay heal effect, and it's quite nice to just have it out. I think the only problem is that sometimes you want to heal immediately, right? Because maybe an ally is wounded, or they might even have brittle, and that's something that you want to get rid of there and then. You don't want to wait for somebody to die to then get this heal. So this is more of an aggressive heal, I would say. Certainly your summons are going to die pretty regularly, either because you choose to discard them, which I guess would trigger this. That might be something for the FAQ. If you choose to discard a summon, does that count as a death? I would assume yes, but worth maybe might need to be FAQ'd that. This is probably going to be more usable if you have a frontline tank and you are playing more of a support role. All in all, this card is, I think, pretty standard. The top is a very big splashy effect, if you like, and the bottom is kind of like a nice little heal. It is a situational heal though, which I think does sort of mark it down a point, because there's going to be situations when you're just going to want the heal, and unfortunately this is not going to happen because nothing has died, and that might be a bit unfortunate. The other level 7 card we have is Soul Claim, which is on the next 3 monster deaths. Within range 3, add +1 curse card to the monster attack modifier deck. Now this is quite nice. It creates dark as well, another good dark generator there. And it's just not a burn, so you're just going to get it until it basically happens and it's go to your discard pile. Now this could be really nice. It says monster death, so obviously your summons don't count, so you are going to have to go after the enemies and try and kill them. And that could be, fairly easy to do, I think. The problem with this is you want to get this out early, and it's probably not going to have, it's not going to have any value towards the end of a scenario. This is going to have great value at the beginning of a scenario because you're going to want to start trying to get the curses in. Probably not on the first couple of rounds though, right? Because the enemies are still at full health. So you're going to need to whittle the enemies down. Then you're going to want to play this, and you're going to want to position yourself in a really good place. And then, hopefully you get all 3 charges quite quickly. Again, this isn't a card that I would want to see in my active area for 3 or 4 turns. This is definitely a card that I want to wait for the right opportunity, time it right. 23 initiative too, so this just give you that opportunity to maybe go early and play this on that round where you think, I think this round, this is when they're all going to die, right? This is when your team's going to start killing things. So you play this out, and then you get the added benefit. 3 curses is nice, and you can reoccur this. I don't think this is super powerful. This is quite slow cursing. By Gloomhaven standards, this is very slow cursing, but perhaps this is as good as we're going to get in terms of cursing in Frosthaven. So it's a non-burn ability that can curse, and yeah, that might be good enough. The Generate Dark as well is nice. Good to see another generator there, and we're going to need to pick up some generators and keep an eye on these cards. Some of them are just going to be necessary, so yeah, I think this is okay. It's slow by Gloomhaven standards, but maybe it won't be slow by Frosthaven standards. The bomb is when the next monster dies this round, immediately play a card from your discard pile to perform a summon action of the card, reducing any damage you suffer by 2 and acting as if you occupied the hex in which the enemy died. Oh, interesting. This is very, very interesting. So what this is doing is essentially you are summoning next to the hex in which the enemy died, right? It only lasts for a round though, so again, could be risky. You need the 23 initiative, definitely. Could be risky. Maybe something doesn't die that round, so you don't get the value from it. But this is obviously, again, really, really good. A great way of you just getting a summon going. Also, it's a bottom action. I think that these free summon actions are going to be really good on the bottom rather than the top, because obviously on the top we can actually physically play the summons. So in a way we could play a summon and we could like resurrect and get another summon, right, on the same turn. This is a way that we could do a double summon turn, which could be really, really impactful and quite good for us. So I like this. Out of these 2 cards, I think Soul Claim is probably the one that I'm going for, more so because this is a very kind of, it's a very flashy attack, could be ending up being quite good, but I don't think this bottom really gives us enough. But my gut feeling is that this is maybe a little bit too situational for us compared to this, which is just potentially quite reliable. But also, I feel like you want to play this whenever you can. So I like the fact that this has got 2 quite playable halves, whereas this has got, you know, one half which is at the right time, and you've got a bottom here which is going to be it's not going to be great a lot of the time, which makes me feel like this card might end up clogging up your hand sometimes, whereas I feel like Soul Claim is like, oh okay, we're working towards something here. Yeah, I think I'm probably taking Soul Claim at level 7. So at level 8 we come to my favorite summon that's ever been made, and if you watched one of my Frosthaven videos when the Necromancer was changed to the Boneshaper name, and I did a little quick review on it when we were talking about some of the graphics art changes in Frosthaven, go check out that video if you're interested in my thoughts about the graphic design changes and things. I'll maybe put a link up in the corner there if you're interested in that. This summon, I just absolutely in love with it. I think it's one of the most thematically best cards, full stop, that they've made in Frosthaven so far that I've seen. I just absolutely love it. So Endless Numbers, Summon Bone Horde. This is a 7 health, 3 attack, 3 move summon, and it has +1 attack for each token on this card, which is important. So Shambling Skeletons may end their move abilities on this summon. If they do, kill them and add a token to this card, up to a maximum of 5. Whenever this summon suffers damage, you will remove a token to prevent the damage. Yes, this is like, I mean, if you've ever played Magic the Gathering, this kind of amount of text should make you excited. This is just such an amazing combo type card. It's just, for me, this was like a strategy within itself. This one card is a strategy all within itself. Aside from everything else that we've been doing, now just having this big summon that we can move our skeletons into makes move abilities a lot more important too. So planning forwards, taking some cards that allow us to move our summons, I think is going to be quite important. But being able to just move them in there, then they're going to add on some damage. So this could be doing, I mean, I don't think it's going to be doing 8 damage. I think that that's probably a bit much. But let's say if we can manage to get, say, 3 tokens on there, and then occasionally they get removed for damage, this could be an insanely good tanking summon as well. It just removing damage and not taking any. It's got 7 health as well, so it's probably going to be able to tank a hit or 2 itself. If you can shield it up or heal it, I just think this is incredible. Just really, really good. A thematic home run of a summon, but also just an incredibly powerful effect that's going to be a lot of fun to play with and completely changes your character. For me, it may be worth just playing this character to get to level 8 to play this card. I mean, that's how good I think this card is and how much fun I think it's going to be playing with. You know, all of the other cards beforehand have been fun up to a point, but this is like, this really elevates this character. I mean, I'm surprised this isn't a level 9, to be honest, because this is, you know, the kind of thing that you really want to aim for with a character. And yeah, for me, so far, this is the best summon that I've seen in Frosthaven, or even the best card full stop that I've seen in Frosthaven. I absolutely love it. For me, there's no point even looking at the other level 8, because this is, as soon as I read the top of this, I'm like, I'm all in. So I think this is fantastic. Could be incredibly powerful, and if you will be very, very satisfying to play with, I think. 86 initiative, that's late summoning initiative to be expected. The bottom is grant one of your summons, move +0, grant one of your summons, consume dark to wound, target all at range 1. You may actually get a little play out of the bottom of this card. Maybe you don't want to play the Bone Horde immediately because you maybe want to get the skeletons out before the Bone Horde. I imagine what would be a good idea would be get the skeletons out before the Bone Horde. Then you want to move the skeletons into the Bone Horde. There's going to be a bit of a sequence of play there where perhaps this card could be used for the bottom, but the move +0 means you can't go too crazy. But if you could reliably go in and wound things, you're pretty happy with that. So this is a pretty strong effect too, but this is just the most fun I've ever seen. So I think we're going to be playing the top of this, but yeah, you might get some use out of it, but this, no doubt, this is actually pretty decent. The other level 8 is Wailing from Beyond, which is attack 2, target 3, range 4, consume dark to get muddle, to add muddle, and then all targets adjacent to at least one of your summons gain curse. Now attack 2, target 3 is not too bad. Range 4, that's quite nice. I think you're going to be able to get 3 targets, especially if you're playing 3 or 4 player. Consume dark for muddle is a bit of an underwhelming use of the dark, in my opinion, compared to some of our other uses for dark. I would say that this is pretty underwhelming assumption ability. And then all targets adjacent to at least one of your summons gain curse. Again, this kind of caps the cursing potential of this because it's just if a target is adjacent to at least one summon, they get a curse. Not they get a curse for every summon that's adjacent to them, right? So you can't crowd around one poor enemy and just chuck 3 or 4 curses at them, right? Because there's 4 summons there. They're only going to get 1 curse. And I think that is a significant downside, you know, and a weakness to the card. Honestly, I think that this is pretty underwhelming for what is a level 8 effect. The attack too, I mean, they could have chucked poison or something on here. I think if this was consumed dark to add poison, that would maybe make the card a bit better. But this is a poor use of dark, in my opinion. A poor use, and not something I would be excited to do. And let's say potentially you got 2 curses out of it. Attack 2, target 3 with curse 2. Is that really a level 8 card? Not in my opinion, especially not considering what we've just seen. So yeah, I think this is a very underwhelming top for me. The bottom is move 3, heal 3, target 1 ally at range 3, consume, get ward. Now ward is quite nice. It's like half damage. I actually think the ward is going to be a very prevalent ability, and it's going to be a very sought after ability. I think ward is going to be kind of like super sneaky good, and one of the better tools for tanks that they've now got, a new tool for tanks. I mean, come on, this is still pretty underwhelming for what is a level 8 card. Move 3 to heal 3, and you can't even heal yourself. This just feels very weak to me. This card in general. Now, I don't know if that's, I don't want to say it's because, hey, everybody should take this. Maybe there'll be another build that may want this. If you haven't gotten the skeletons, obviously this is pretty bad. If you are playing no shambling skeletons, then this Bone Horde is bad, right? It is bad. So you probably might consider this, but also you might consider just going back for another card. I think as a level 8 card in general, this is very underwhelming. So, I mean, it's an easy choice for me. Endless Numbers, because it's the strongest card, I think, here, but also the coolest by far. All right, so level 9, here we go. Unholy Prowess, which is summon a skeleton, a sorcerer, which is a 6 health summon, 3 move, attack 2, range 3. That's nice. Going to be able to keep up. Got a ranged attack, so should be able to maybe keep themselves out of trouble. And we have all shambling skeletons have +1 health. Okay, So another Magic the Gathering reference. This is kind of like a Lord, but not really a Lord. A Lord would give your skeletons maybe +1 attack. This one just gives +1 health. So, but it's a similar kind of effect, right? It's this giving your summons a buff. Do I think that this is great? I don't really think it is. I think it's a bit underwhelming. You know, the difference between your skeletons having, I mean, if you've already got the other buff, right? So your skeletons now have, let's say, 5 health. With this, you have 3 health normally, plus you have the buff from the passive that you can play, and you have the sorcerer out. Great, you have 5 health. The difference between 5 health and 3 health, it could be a hit. It could be 2 hits rather than 1. Could be. If you like to play on plus difficulty, though, you know you're getting attacked for like 5 every single turn, or even higher, sometimes 6 or 7 all the time. So I don't know if this is good enough. Would it have been too bad to give a +1 attack on here? Would that have made this too good? I don't know. It's interesting. I have a feeling that maybe that was the initial design, was let's have a skeleton lord at level 9, and let's give it, you know, in the old Magic terms, it's +1/+1, right? That's what it is. +1 strength and +1 toughness. That's what a lord does. And I feel like that was what the intent here was. But this doesn't really, I think just giving the health is not great. I mean, if it gave more movement, maybe that could be interesting too. Maybe it doesn't have to give the attack. Maybe the additional move would be quite nice. Overall, a little bit underwhelming, but it's a good summon in terms of doing damage because of that ranged attack. So it's going to be a useful summon just to have to contribute damage. But it is a little bit like, you know, a level 9 Mystic Ally in that sense, which we all know that Mystic Ally was a bit too powerful. But I mean, to move some, you know, a kind of a summon that was around that kind of power level at level 1 up to level 9, you know, that's a real big shift. So it's basically like a slightly better Mystic Ally, if in my opinion, really, because it's got the range 3 and the move 3 rather than the range 2 and the move 2. The 6 health as well is a little bit better, right? But we have to be careful not to compare too hard to Gloomhaven, because Frosthaven is balanced within itself. Mystic Ally was known to be overpowered and a bit too strong as a level 1 summon. There's definitely been some adjustments here, so we have to kind of tailor our expectations a bit differently in Frosthaven. Of course, people are always going to compare, and you know, that is a comparison. So at the bottom of this is ignore all damage self abilities on your ability cards. That is a permanent thing, and we get 2 elements off the back of it as well. Well, there you go. I think that's what you want. So screw the top of this card. We're playing the bottom. It's a little bit annoying that these two are together, I guess, because you're kind of forced to choose. Do you want to do this or do you want to do this? And this is by far weaker than this, because why would you have skeletons with an additional 1 health when you can just replay them for free, much cheaper and easier? You know, the major drawback of your character has been taken away. Now this is also great with some of the heals as well, right? The self-damaging heals. This could also work well with that. But this effect was much earlier in the character when it was initially launched. So when it was initially revealed, this effect was, I believe, at like level 4 or something. It probably made the character a bit too strong. So getting it at level 9, I think, is a suitable payoff. You've been working very hard, and now you can just play skeletons to your heart's content. Works very well with the Bone Horde, because now we don't necessarily have to worry about, oh, well, I can't keep playing skeletons because I'm just going to die. I need to stop and heal at some point. This way you can go all in on the Bone Horde, which I think is really, really cool. Unholy Prowess, I think that the summon is underwhelming, or at least it's not, let's say it's just not particularly attractive. Like it's a fine value summon. A ranged attack summon's always going to be good, but it's just nothing. It's nothing too flashy for a level 9, and I don't think that this +1 health is really enough to really encourage you to play it. But the bottom of this is I think great, and kind of unlocks your character in many ways. So probably a lot of people are going to be wanting to play this. The other card is Behold the Shrouded Sun, which is the next enemy which kills one of your summons this round gains Bane, and that is create Dark 10 initiative. Now that is pretty good. Bane is essentially that they will take 10 damage at the end of their next turn. They get a token and they will take 10 damage at the end of their next turn. So this is a lot of damage. It's a non-burn too, which is pretty crazy. I really like the idea that this character can go for, like, this is like the ultimate thing for a tank build, right? You just want loads of summons. You want your summons to absorb all of the hits, and then you want to play Behold the Shrouded Sun, and just enemies are just dying like from like huge amounts of retaliate essentially. This is, I think, very strong. Repeatable as well. 10 initiative too. This is the best initiative we've had. I've been moaning about initiative all this time, and here it is at level 9, we get a 10. Really, really good. I don't think you can really underestimate this. This is a very powerful effect. And it's similar to, I mean, it's not similar to having assassinate and execute just at your will. They've obviously removed that kind of element of the game, or at least they've removed it from every character having access to at least one effect like that. But this is obviously very powerful. The bottom is damage to self, so hurt yourself for 2. All enemies within range 5 will suffer 1 damage, but you can consume earth and dark to make it 2 damage instead. Now this is pretty strong too, because this will go through shields. It's really good against high shield but low health enemies. Pure damage is always going to be good. If you think about it, within range 5 as well, you don't even necessarily have to be very close. So the range of this is huge. It's actually huge. You know, if you were to stand in a door, range 5 on like a small size, 2 small size tiles or average size tiles, let's say, that range 5 could get from, you know, nearly cover the entire two tiles. So in Magical Christmas Land, you could in theory target 5 or 6, 7 or 8 enemies with this. Completely possible to target a lot of enemies, right? And then you're looking at doing 2 damage, which, by the way, I think you really do want to do this. I think you want to try and consume both. Perhaps we can generate dark on the top and earth on the bottom in a single turn. That could be something that we could do. But being able to maybe do 2 damage to, let's say, 8 things, you know, you're looking at 16 damage across the board. That's obviously better than the top. But it's less reliable than the top, and you have to do damage to yourself. And you're probably gonna, if you wanted to really do like a big turn like that, you would have to like put yourself in danger, right? Also, the fact that it's the bottom means you have to be in the right place to begin with. This character hasn't had a single move on the top of any of their actions as we've gone through, so there's no top moves. So unless we get an item, I won't go to spoil it, but unless we can get other items that allow us to do move actions or allies move us around a little bit, we're going to have to be at the right place to begin the turn. Worth thinking about. Out of these 2 cards, I think personally I am going to go for Unhallowed Press, because I think like ignoring all of the damage self abilities is just going to free us so much from, you know, that cap, if you like, on how many summons we can really have, because you've always got your health as that kind of cap, and the game is if you like, put you on a leash, right? You can't quite do that really crazy unlock, you know, stuff where you can just go mad. And I think that this really allows you to do that. It's just very strong, allowing you to just go crazy with all of your summons, just play as many as you want, don't have to worry about it, and just have fun playing your summons at level 9, which is what you want. You want to just have fun on the last few kind of, I guess when you're level 9, you're probably gonna be thinking about retirement. So you're probably just gonna want to have some crazy fun with the character and really just abuse its mechanics to its maximum effect. And I think that the bottom of Unholy Prowess really helps you do that. Okay, so let's take a look at the perks. So the first perk we have is replace 1 -1 card with 1 +0 and curse card. I think this is nice. We're getting rid of a -1, which if we're attacking for 2 with our summons pretty regularly, we have low value attacks. Just getting rid of that -1 so that the summon doesn't attack for just 1 against a shield of 1 and does nothing is good. Whereas if you get like a curse, you're not so bummed out, right? If you attack something and it has shield 2 and your summon just bounces off the shield with this, at least you get a curse in their deck. It's incremental value, right? So I quite like that. Same again, but with poison, we've got 2 of each here. I think I probably like the curse one a little bit more than the poison one, just because we have lots of active ways ourselves to poison enemies where we can actually try to do the poisoning ourselves. The cursing is a little bit harder, so I feel like getting the incremental cursing is probably better than the incremental poisoning, if that makes sense. And cursing has also been nerfed a little bit, so the prevalence of curse has been brought down, so you're not going to get access to as many crazy curse abilities. So having some extra curses in your attack modifier deck, the potential to do some extra curses, is going to be nice. Place 1 -2 with 1 +0 card. Nice. This means that kind of when you have a summon, right, and the attack is 2, the -2 is almost a miss. So if you're going all in, well, it is a miss, unless the enemy's poisoned, right? So If you're going all in on the Shambling Skeletons, this might be a decent one to get just because it stops that miss, essentially, that you might end up getting. Replace 1 +0 card with 1 +1. Kill the attacking summon to instead add +4 card. Now, this is a perk I like the sound of. So basically, we're replacing a +0 with a +1. Full stop, right? That's good. That's pretty good within itself. Then we have kill the attacking summon to instead add +4, which is nice. And that's an instead, so we don't necessarily have to do that. If we know that that +4 is actually going to kill them, this could be incredibly powerful. Wow, I really like this perk. This perk is really cool. If you're going the Shambling Skeleton route, 100% this is what you want. Obviously, once you get to sort of like the Bone Horde plan at level 8, perhaps these aren't going to be quite as good because you're never going to want to kill your Bone Horde. But the fact that it just replaces a +0 with a +1 means you haven't wasted a perk by any means. I think this is sneaky, actually very strong. Sneaky, very, very strong. This is really not a drawback a lot of the time for you. You just play them again. Or your summon goes early, right? Draws this card. You use the +4, they die. Then you get to play them from the discard pile anyway by using one of your cards. So, yeah, really like this. Add 3 rolling, heal 1, target the Boneshaper card. Interesting. So this is a way that we can heal ourselves. Ooh, this could be quite good. This could actually be nice. Because one thing that I worry about is our health pool and having to take a lot of turns to just heal ourselves. I think it's going to be especially awkward if this character accidentally gets hit by something at some point. If you're playing this Boneshaper and, I don't know, an enemy draws... Let's say you go late on turn 1 and the enemy draws some kind of like target 2 card or something like that, and you end up taking some damage from a source that you weren't expecting. Then suddenly... that throws all of your math, if you like, on how you're going to play your summons completely out of the window, especially at level 1. So having these rolling just heal 1s on your summons could be quite nice. Your summons, cost you 2 health to play the summon, then the summon goes out, maybe gets to flip one of these, kind of repays a little bit of that life that it cost you. Add 1 +2, create Earth or Dark cards, so some element generation there, but also just a good attack in general. So far, I'm really liking these perks. And the next up is ignore negative scenario effects and add 2 +1 cards. Negative scenario effects might not hurt this character too much, depends on what they are. But say, for example, some of the negative scenario effects that we had in Gloomhaven, one of them was that you had to discard a card at the beginning. I don't think that's much of a drawback for this character, or I think that actually plays into their hands, so perhaps that's a negative effect that you would like. But other ones might be curses, wounds, poisons. I think if you got poison, maybe at the beginning, that could be a bit difficult for you, because if you want to heal and play more summons, that could be hard. Wound as well is a bit of a harsh one for you, because you're going to start ticking down, and before you know it, 2 turns have gone through and you've taken 2 points of wound damage, and therefore you can't play your summon, right? So it's a problem that you have to immediately address. Depending on the negative scenario effects, what they are and how prevalent they are, this could actually be a very required one for this character. Immediately before each of your rests, you may kill one of your summons to perform Bless Self. Interesting. I mean, I think that this is okay, because killing a summon and being able to replay it, because basically you're going to kill the summon, it's going to go to your discard pile, and then you're going to pick it back up again, right? So it's not too much of a drawback, because sometimes you're going to actively want to discard the summon anyway. Sometimes you're just going to want to discard the summon to put it into your discard to be able to pick it up regardless, because it's too far behind, or you just want the extra cards to play. I can see that this is just giving you a bit of value for doing that action anyway. Thing is that a Bless is not great on this character, because all your attacks are pretty low. I mean, a Bless, or the Bone Horde drawing a Bless, that could be quite nice. But your summons, like your attack 2, Shambling Skeletons, maybe with poison on a target, I don't know. I just don't feel like this character is one that really cares about blesses very much. But it does give you incremental value, so maybe it'll end up being quite good. We have got a lot of perks so far, though, that I think are very strong for this character, so maybe this is just not quite up to snuff, but it is only 1 perk point, so it's not that much of an investment. Once each scenario, when any character ally would become exhausted by suffering damage, you may suffer 2 damage to reduce their hit point value to 1 instead. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, this is potentially pretty interesting. Now, you're not going to want to do this when an ally gets a ×2 drawn against them. That's not when you want this. You really want this when your ally is sat there on like 3 or 4 health, and the enemy draws like the kill they draw to kill, because you don't want to reduce somebody from, perhaps they're sitting on 10 life and the enemy draws ×2 on attack 5. Now, would you want to use this to put their health to 1 and use to take 2? Absolutely not. In that situation, that character should be burning a card. If they have the cards to burn, they should be burning a card there. So realistically, this is only going to be usable when your ally is at, let's say, 3 or 4 health and the enemy draws the kill. So actually going to 1 is going to keep them in the fight. I'm not sold on this. I think that it looks like it's really good. Like the way that it sounds good. But actually, I think from a gameplay perspective, I don't think this is very powerful. And I think realistically, players should be discarding cards for really big damage attacks that come out of nowhere. You should just be opting to discard a card to negate the damage entirely. That's what you should be doing. There might be the odd scenario here or there where this particular effect absolutely saves you and saves the character, and perhaps you win because of it. And there could be some really nice kind of wins that could come from something like this, and some good stories, I think. But ultimately, I think this is probably one of the weaker perks. So last, we have the 2 checkbox perk, which is at the start of each scenario, you may play a level 1 card from your hand to perform a summon action of the card. Is that a free action? At the beginning of each scenario, I just get a free action? Yes, please. So does that mean that I can have a summon immediately on the board and a summon that will immediately act on my behalf on the first turn? Yes. So this is obviously very powerful. You can see why this is put as 2 perk points. Really, really strong effect. Everybody wants this, I think. Every single build will probably want this. This is just really, really good. Helps accelerate your character. Like I said before, this character is really going to maybe struggle to keep up with the pace in the early levels to be able to play a summon, then your summon dies, and then play another summon. Like the recycling of summons is very important, but you want to get summons out and start to flood the board and make things difficult for the enemies, the focus of, are they going to focus your summons, who they're going to focus, and also just get that value of summons out and attacking nice and early. The one thing that this does do, though, is it does put your hand size off a little bit. So you have a starting hand size of 12. This would actually reduce you down to 11, which means that actually you're not actually like 1 free action up. You kind of are, but it is worth bearing in mind that then you're not like getting a free extra turn here, because you're going to have 1 turn when you're only going to have 1 card in hand. So you're going to have to either long rest or short rest to continue. So if you have a stamina potion, though, that can negate this issue a little bit. So a minor stamina potion, if they do exist in Frosthaven for this character and you go for this perk, could be quite important. I mean, I know that's like hilarious saying that a minor stamina potion could be important. I mean, they're important for every character, but in this respect, this would actually change the dynamics of how many rounds you can go right at the beginning. So that's worth maybe considering, but I think it's incredibly powerful and definitely something that you want. And I think this character in general has some really good perks. And I think most players are probably going to focus around improving the attack modifier deck. I think that's good. I think obviously when you get to level 9, this kind of becomes a bit obsolete. But when you get to level 9, I mean, to be honest, when you're level 9, you are probably retiring soon anyway. I don't think you should really worry too much. But out of these perks, I think this is definitely the best. These two, I think, this one's probably the better of these two, but I'm not hugely sold on this because it's a bless is not amazing for this character, or at least not until you get Bone Horde, and then even then you're then killing something that you want to feed into the Bone Horde. It gets a bit weird. I think ignoring the negative scenario effects could be massive, because if you ever get wounded or poisoned at the beginning, that could be bad. But if you do get to discard a card as some of these effects, maybe it would be good. So there's a swingy nature to that one, but there's some really good ways for you to improve your attack modifier deck. And this one in particular, I think is going to be really, really useful. So there we have it. There is the Boneshaper class. I think this is going to be a fan favorite class from the starters. It's really interesting to see how summons have evolved, and this particular class was one that was potentially going to be in Jaws of the Lion originally. However, it was deemed to be maybe a bit too complicated for it to actually fit in that set. And I think that was probably a good decision. And it's nice that we're going to see this character in a full-fledged version of the game, if you like, with, enhancements and all of the other stuff going on. I think that's going to be really, really good. So really pumped to see this one. I think a lot of people are going to like it. Potentially a little bit broken with the banner spear. It's not often that we get a kind of 2-class combination right out of the gates that has some incredible synergy with each other. So that's going to be very interesting to see, and will certainly lead to some interesting gameplay and some interesting moments. Don't forget, if you are watching this as this video is fairly new, then you can enter that competition to win yourself a copy of Gloomhaven Digital, which closes on the 19th of July. So check down below at the pinned comment and the description for your chance to enter and maybe win yourself a key. And as always, if you did enjoy it, please do consider liking and subscribing. It does honestly really help. And consider coming over to twitch.tv/mandatoryquest and maybe talk to me about what you think there. I mean, what do you think about the Boneshaper? Do you think it's going to be as powerful as potentially others think? You think that it's maybe a bit of a broken combo with the banner spear? Is it going to be your starter of choice? Let me know over at twitch.tv/mandatoryquest, where I stream every Monday, Wednesday, Sunday, or in the comments below. I do try to answer every comment that I see. Okay, well, I think that wraps up today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you in the next video. Bye.
I think so. Yeah.
That's the blessing from Cam. That's the blessing from.
Isaac, at this point, can we get your approval to add an additional attack modifier deck for allies in the digital version?